lot of the other stuff, no, they don't know anything about it. So to their mind, not much has happened since the kids in cages thing, for example. That I think was the last big public uproar. And so they're like, well, that was a while ago. Right now, here's what's going on. But in the meantime, since then, a lot of other things have happened. And we ignore them at our peril. And I think that it is good, at least if I do nothing else with this show, it's good that I have this opportunity to remind people of that sort of thing, and just to kind of share some information about it so that people actually realize what's going on, what is being done. And I look forward to continuing to complain. I know that's a weird way of saying it, but I will undoubtedly, I think, to be fair, no matter who wins the election, there's still going to be a lot left to work on as far as immigration goes. We have a long way to go because there are a lot of people who just have really ridiculous and let's face it, racist or xenophobic attitudes towards immigrants, and there's going to be work to be done. So I will be complaining or educating or ranting about this topic for some time to come. But it would be nice to at least step back from the existential brink, so to speak, and have it be a more reasonable discussion. Like, I think this wasn't a good idea, instead of, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. That would be great. I would love to make that step back to a sort of a normal life. Anyway, I'm just, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just ranting. Those who follow the news recently may have been aware, well, they're no doubt aware of a variety of different celebrities that have passed away. It seems like lately they're dying in droves. I don't know why it seems like that. Maybe it's just a generational thing. But anyway, one of the people that was lost was the guitarist Eddie Van Halen. And I ran into a very short but interesting little piece about him because a lot of people didn't know that he was an immigrant when he came here. So this is entitled, Eddie Van Halen Endured a Horrifying Racist Environment Before Becoming a Rock Legend. I think that title is maybe a bit over the top, but well, we'll see. Anyway, music fans around the world are mourning the loss of iconic Van Halen rock star Eddie Van Halen. And while many today honor his legacy as one of the all-time greatest guitarists, fans are also highlighting past interviews describing his encounters with painful racism and discrimination because of his mixed race in his early years. Van Halen, who died Tuesday, this is a while back, this is early in October, at 65, he died of throat cancer, was the son of Dutch and Indonesian immigrants and spent his childhood in the Netherlands. His former bandmate David Lee Roth, a fellow rock superstar, a weird way to say that, once revealed on the podcast, Mark Maron show, just how painful the experience was for young Van Halen and his brother, drummer Alex. In the 2019 interview, Roth described how poorly the Van Halen's parents were treated because of their mixed-race relationship in the 1950s. It was a big deal. Those homeboys grew up in a horrifying racist environment to where they actually had to leave the country, Roth said on the podcast. He added that the brothers, who were often referred to as half-breed in the Netherlands, still met difficult circumstances after immigrating to the U.S. Then they came to America and did not speak English as a first language in the early 60s. So that kind of sparking, that kind of stuff, that runs deep. The brothers' mother, Eugenia, met their father, Jan, a traveling musician in Indonesia when it was under Dutch rule. Shortly after World War II, the couple decided to move to the Netherlands, where the rock stars were born. Eugenia was treated as a second-class citizen. Van Halen said in an interview in 2017 with music journalist Dennis Quan for Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. The family packed up and left for the U.S. in 1962, making the trek by boat for 9 days before settling in the Pasadena, California area. Their early days in the U.S. were difficult, Van Halen told Quan. The family lived in a house shared with 2 other families. While his mother worked as a maid, his father picked up a job as a janitor and also maintained a music career. The environment at the time wasn't particularly inviting to the young immigrants, and Van Halen described his first day of school as absolutely frightening. We already went through that in Holland, first day, first grade. Now you're in a whole other country where you can't speak the language, and you know absolutely nothing about anything, and it was beyond frightening, he said. I don't even know how to explain it, but I think it made us stronger, because you had to be. He told Quan that the school he attended at the time was still segregated, and that because he couldn't speak the language, he was considered a minority student. My first friends in America were black, Eddie told the journalist. It was actually the white people that were the bullies. They would tear up my homework and papers, make me eat playground sand, all of those things, and the black kids stuck up for me. In spite of the racism and discrimination he faced, Van Halen told Quan that looking back on his life, he was grateful for his experience as an immigrant. Coming here with approximately $50 and a piano, not being able to speak the language, going through everything to get where we are, if that's not the American dream, I don't know what is, he said in the interview. Indonesian social media users have paid tribute to Van Halen, who's seen as a source of pride for many in the community. So that's one of those, sort of feel bad but really feel good stories that you get from time to time. But I think if you sort of read between the lines and sort of ignore the American dream thing, which is, there is this thing called the American dream, which is that anyone from anywhere can, with pluck and hard work and determination, can make something of themselves and, go on to great things. It ignores the fact that 98, maybe 99% of it is just sheer luck. You happen to have the right look, the right talent, the right connections, be in the right place at the right time, whatever the thing is. I think the notion, and a lot of people, ascribe to it for themselves, and I think it's a way of kind of like saying, no, I didn't have any peculiar advantage. I just worked hard. And, I've found myself saying that. I think I've commented on this before in this program, but where, I look back on my life and it just starts to look sort of hazy and indistinct. And I see these high points, and I just see this story, this kind of story of survival and perseverance. I remember the hard things that I overcame, and it starts to seem like that's the reason for the successes that I've had, when in fact there are lots and lots of reasons. And one of the biggest challenges of growing older and being an adult is keeping yourself grounded in the sense that, like, remembering your story accurately. However difficult some of my times have been, it has almost always been luck or assistance from somebody else that has made the difference, at least equal to, if not more than, hard work or perseverance on my part. Which is not to say that I didn't work hard and I didn't persevere, because I did. I had to, in order to, take advantage of that assistance or that luck or that innate talent or whatever it is. Those things can be there, and you can just not do anything with them, and they won't get you anywhere. I mean, if you can be as talented as you want to be, But if you don't like try to use that talent for something, um, and make it serve you in some way, nothing's going to happen. So yes, at the basis, hard work, determination, perseverance, um, willingness to get back up and dust yourself off and try again when you fail. All those things are necessary for success. But equally necessary or equally important are the innate talent, the lucky timing, and the help of other people, help and guidance of other people. Um, and that is really important to remember. So I bring this up because, you read a feel good sort of American dream story like this about someone like Eddie Van Halen, and you go, well, gosh, he had a rough time, but look at him. He went on to become this huge rock star. So pointing at you, why didn't you do it? Why can't you do that? Why don't you make that happen? Seems to be the sort of the next logical step when we think about these things is everybody, if he could do it, you can do it. And that's not true. It's not true at all. If I, for example, I consider myself a relatively intelligent and talented person, but if I had his exact trajectory, I would not have been this world's, this great guitarist, world-renowned guitarist, because I don't have that talent. I don't have that skill. And I could have practiced all day and all night and I wouldn't do it. I have a natural, dexterity, a natural aptitude. I can play several instruments and I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not great. I'm just good. And most of what makes me good is my ear and my hearing and my ability to take what limited talent I have and make the most of it. Whereas someone like him, he had an extraordinary talent and he made the most of it. So, that was a special case. And I'm going into this long sidetrack here because a lot of people look at immigrants and think, well, if they really tried, this is America after all. The American dream is there. Look at Eddie Van Halen. He was an immigrant, look at blah, blah, blah. And they use this notional American dream as an excuse for not helping anybody. It's up to you to make something of yourself. It's up to you. It's what you do that makes the difference. And yeah, to a certain extent, that's true. It's what you do along with the ways that other people help you and your luck at being in the right time and your natural talent. So it is not either or. It's not one or the other. It's both things. And it requires both. And if we as a country just said, hey, we're going to help people that are trying, a lot more people would be in much better circumstances than they are. But it's the fact that we sort of as a country, as a culture, sort of stand back and go, hey, it's up to you. The American dream says you can make something of yourself if only you try. So go ahead and try. In fact, we'll help you make it hard. We'll give you lots of reasons why you have to try even harder, because you'll be so much happier after you've overcome these obstacles that we put in your way. You'll feel very proud of yourself for having done that. It's not good. So I'm just saying. Pardon me. My throat's drying out here. Anyway, I'm ranting on it. It's one of those many things where I think that we need to stop and sort of step back from our imaginary universe that we think we live in, with this greatest country on earth and these, the American dream available to anyone, and all these kinds of nonsensical wishful thinking, and realize that all we have are each other. And the more narrowly, for some reason that's hard to say, the more narrowly we define who we are, each other is, the more difficult we make it for people that don't fit into the narrow confines of that impression. So the nativists and the xenophobes and all those people out there are defining we very, very narrowly. It's just about this wide. It's like, I'm fit in here. And if you look exactly like me and think exactly like me and talk exactly like me, and then you fit in here too. Otherwise, you don't. That doesn't work. Humanity did not crawl out of the trees or out of the caves or out of the mud, or however you want to describe our progress since our early years. We didn't do that by defining we as narrowly. And back in those days, it was, if you're a human at all, then you're one of us, and we're fighting against lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my! And that was how people worked together. And then it was sort of the luxury of successful civilizations that allowed people to start defining themselves in different ways and saying, well, you're not one of us, you're one of those. And then they start fighting each other. And we've slowed down ever since in terms of progress, because we're not helping each other as much as we should be. So anyway, that's a very long rant. Let me try to squeeze some more in here. How about this one? It's entitled "The Day That America Lost $100 Billion Because of an Immigration Visa Ban." On June 22nd, 2020, President Trump issued an executive order, or EO, restricting the entry of individuals seeking to enter the country on a non-immigrant work visa. As part of this EO, the president proclaimed, quote, "I have determined that the entry through December 31st, 2020 of certain aliens as immigrants and non-immigrants would be detrimental to the interest of the United States," end quote. Our ongoing research provides evidence to the contrary and documents that the EO negatively affected the market valuation of the largest U.S. firms. Okay, we're back to looking at immigrants in a financial way, in dollars and cents terms, but it's important to at least be aware of this stuff because it affects all of us. Anyway, according to estimates, this executive order barred the entrance of nearly 200,000 foreign workers and their dependents. The non-immigrant visas, such as the H-1B and L-1 visas, that were targeted are used by companies to hire or transfer high-skilled immigrants. There is overwhelming evidence documenting that skilled immigration improves firm outcomes such as profits, productivity, production expansion, innovation, and investment. Thus, it is plausible that the Trump administration's measures significantly restraining immigration will have lasting negative impacts on American firms and, with it, slow down the post-COVID-19 economic recovery. But we do not have to go very far into the future to assess the negative impacts of this policy. In fact, the largest U.S. firms have already taken a big hit, as we document in our most recent study. We estimate the cumulative average abnormal stock returns for Fortune 500 firms after the June 22nd EO that restricted the skilled immigration visas on which Fortune 500 firms especially rely. This approach allows us to estimate the immediate economic impact of the aforementioned EO on the largest U.S. firms. We find that in the aftermath of that executive order, the market valuation of the Fortune 500 companies in our sample dropped by about 0.45%. A loss to the economy as a whole that we estimate at around $100 billion, based on the market valuation of the same firms a day before the EO. We further find that this negative shock was much more pronounced for firms that had maintained or increased their reliance on foreign workers during the years prior to the EO, as measured by growth in each firm's labor condition application requests, which proxies demand for H-1B visas. In the days after June 22nd, when the EO was announced, the abnormal stock returns for the firms in our sample dropped and remained down for 10 days after the announcement, which suggests that it was a persistent effect. The sizable negative effect on the economy reflects the fact that investors and markets more generally understand that many of these firms will not be able to perform as well without the ability to hire top foreign talent, directly affecting the firm's overall valuation, which in turn affects the recovery prospects of the economy as a whole. If the executive order and other recent policies that curtail visas for skilled foreign workers stays in place, there is robust evidence suggesting that in the next few years, these firms, instead of hiring U.S.-born workers, as the policies intended, will likely offshore many of their activities to other nations. In other words, in the short run, the executive order caused a loss of $100 billion in market valuation. In the long run, it could cause even more damage to the U.S. economy as firms react to these constraints by shifting employment and investment abroad. We can hope our study will inform the policy debate on the importance of designing policies that allow the U.S. economy to continue to grow by complementing American workers with talent from abroad, a formula that has always been an engine for growth of the economy. Our results are yet another piece of evidence that policies restricting immigration to the U.S., from refugees and fundamental workers to students to highly qualified individuals, are harmful to the country and are the opposite of what is needed to achieve a full economic recovery in the aftermath of the global pandemic. Yeah. Okay. Well, we just have a few minutes left here. I'm going to start this next article. We're not going to make it all the way through, but we'll just go ahead and get as far as we can. It is entitled, Yes, American Cities and Towns Welcome Immigrants. Despite the shrill anti-immigrant rhetoric coming from the White House and certain right-wing groups, more than two-thirds of Americans state that current immigration levels are fine, 36%, or should be increased, 34%. As of June 2020, only 28% of those Gallup surveyed said immigration should be decreased, the smallest response since Gallup began asking the question in 1965. President Trump's distaste for immigrant inclusion stands in sharp contrast to his immediate predecessors, George W. Bush and Barack Obama. In 2006, President Bush established the Task Force on New Americans, led by the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, as an interagency initiative to help immigrants learn English, embrace the common core of American civic culture, and fully become American. President Obama elevated the importance of immigrant incorporation when he established the White House Task Force on New Americans in 2014 to strengthen civic, economic, and linguistic integration and to build strong and welcoming communities. Among other things, the task force encouraged municipalities to become welcoming communities. Welcoming communities is a movement for more inclusive communities that is springing up across the United States. Welcome America, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that supports efforts of inclusive communities, defines a welcoming community as a place that fosters a culture and policy environment that makes it possible for newcomers of all backgrounds to feel valued and to fully participate alongside their neighbors in the social, civic, and economic fabric of their adopted hometowns. And by the way, I will point out that our Welcome Awards are a byproduct of the Welcome America having the Welcoming Week, and we try to make that a part of their efforts. So we are connected with that group, and we work with them. Anyway, Abigail Fisher Williamson's 2018 book, Welcoming New Americans, points out that while the legal landscape of immigration is primarily dictated by federal law, the political landscape of immigrant incorporation is based on the particulars of a locale. In her research, she explores why and how local governments across the country are taking steps to accommodate immigrants, sometimes in the face of formidable opposition. Researchers Manuel Pastor and John Mollenkopf also emphasize the importance of local leadership in shaping opinions and responses to immigrants. In particular, they show how that mayoral leadership is critical in leveraging and integrating existing resources and coordinating community stakeholders. A.K. Sandoval-Strauss describes a 3-decade reversal after years of divestment, white flight, job loss, and crime crippled American cities in his 2019 book, Barrio America, How Latino Immigrants Saved the American City. Today, large cities are hubs for the national economy, have historically lower crime rates, and offer prime urban real estate. Often this revitalization is attributed to a return to the city by an elite, creative class of young professionals. Sandoval-Strauss, however, says this reversal is largely because of Latin American immigrants. The just published Welcoming Communities Immigrant Incorporation in Dallas, Texas, finds that Dallas is successful on some elements of immigrant incorporation, yet falls short on others. Over a 9-month period, 16 graduate students at the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs, under my direction, worked with the City of Dallas Office of Welcoming Communities and Immigrant Affairs to study immigrant incorporation. Building on the New America Economies Cities Index, we found that Dallas earns top scores on government leadership, but has low scores on NAE's Livability Index, home ownership rates, rent burden, and overcrowded dwellings, share of people with health insurance, and education levels. And Job Opportunities Index, the labor force participation rate, employment rate, and shares of people in high prestige occupations, part-time work, and self-employment. They analyzed the American Community Survey's 5-year estimates for Dallas and found disproportionate percentage of poverty within the immigrant populations located across the southern half of Dallas, and gaps in educational assets in certain immigrant communities. Their data analysis revealed that foreign-born owner households in Dallas are 5.1% more likely to be cost-burdened than native-born owner households, and that foreign-born renters are 2.6% more likely to be cost-burdened. The field research recorded that as individuals have more schooling and have lived in the United States longer, they are more likely to be politically and linguistically integrated. They concluded that the trajectory for Dallas is positive if the city continues to exercise government leadership on immigrant incorporation, to promote policies fostering economic development and civic engagement among immigrants, and to support programs that enhance the education outcomes, neighborhood livability, and access to legal health and human services in immigrant communities. Most significantly, they realized that the public policies aiming to improve economic prosperity and livability for immigrants boosted all Dallas native and foreign-born. The City of Dallas was working to remove roadblocks to immigrant incorporation, and it is not alone. Many American cities and towns welcome immigrants and understand that the successful incorporation of immigrants contributes to the locale's economic vitality and vibrant culture. And that's all the time that I have for today. So I thank you for joining me again. I hope you will tune in again. As always, check UPTV on Fridays, I believe, when this show is on, and our YouTube channel. We're always on there. And we've got lots of shows. Anyway, take care, and